Picture a Sunday afternoon in the summer of 1985. The kind of afternoon where the air smells like cut grass and everything feels slow and safe. A mother and her teenage daughter are inside their home in Glen Ellyn, Illinois, planning to spend the day watching old movies together. Candy, popcorn, a lazy afternoon. That was all they wanted. That was all they planned. The mother turned to her daughter and smiled. "Hey, princess, can you run to the jewel store real quick? Just grab us something sweet." It was 150 yards away. A walk she had taken 100 times before. A path everyone in the neighborhood used. A path so familiar it felt like an extension of home. The daughter grabbed her things and headed out the door. Her mother watched her go, and then she said something she would spend the next 33 years replaying in her mind every single day. She said, "Be careful, princess. I love you." Those were the last words Kristy Wesselman ever said to her daughter Kristy. Kristy never came back. Before we dive deeper into this story, drop a comment right now and let us know where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. If you enjoy true crime stories like this one, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who would love it too. This story deserves to be heard. Kristy deserves to be remembered. Kristy Wesselman was 15 years old. She was a freshman at Glenbard South High School in DuPage County, Illinois. By every account from people who knew her, she was the kind of girl who lit up a room. Popular, warm, full of energy. She was the girl with the bright eyes and the easy laugh. She had just come home from summer classes that same day. She was young and bright and had everything ahead of her. A whole life waiting to unfold. Dreams she had not yet had the chance to chase. A future she would never get to live. She wore something small on her finger that day. A family heirloom. A gold ring with a chipped pearl setting. Her mother's ring. Something passed down with love. She wore it like it was part of her. She did not know it would become the most haunting detail of an investigation that would stretch across 3 decades. The Jewel food store was close. The path between her home and the store was well-traveled, familiar, populated with neighbors going about their day. This was not a dark alley. This was not a place anyone would have feared. This was a quiet community in suburban Illinois where people left their doors unlocked and their children walked to the store alone without a second thought. Kristy walked into the Jewel store. She stood in line. She was captured on the store's security camera standing there, calm and unhurried. Just a teenager buying a candy bar and a soda for an afternoon at home with her mom. Then she left. She walked out into the afternoon light and turned toward home. She never made it. When she did not come back, Sandy started to worry. The minutes stretched. The phone era of 1985 offered no way to reach her. No cell phones. No way to text. Sandy went out to look for her. She checked the path. She called out. Nothing. That night, the family reported Kristy missing to police. And then came the knock they were never truly prepared for. The next morning, at 11:15 a.m. on July 22nd, a sheriff's deputy found Kristy's body in a field. The same field between her home and the store. She had been attacked on that familiar path. She had been sexually assaulted. She had been stabbed at least 8 times. There was a shoelace tied around her neck. And not far from her body, lying in the grass, was the half-eaten candy bar she had bought for her mother. That detail alone. The half-eaten candy bar. It says everything. Glen Ellyn was shaken to its core. This was not the kind of thing that happened here. This was a neighborhood where children played outside until dark. Where people knew each other's names. Where safety felt like something solid and real. And in one afternoon, all of that shattered. Investigators came in hard and fast. They collected DNA evidence from the crime scene. This was 1985, and forensic DNA technology was still in its early, unreliable stages. But they collected it. They preserved it. They did not throw it away. That choice would matter more than anyone could have known. Detectives interviewed neighbors. They chased leads. They canvassed the area. They investigated everyone who had ever crossed paths with Kristy, no matter how loosely. And in that sweeping net, they pulled in a man named Dana Henry. His mother's backyard was approximately 100 yards from where Kristy's body had been discovered. That proximity was enough for investigators to fix their attention on him. Dana Henry had never met Kristy Wesselman. Not once. He had no connection to her. But investigators brought him in. They stripped his clothes. They put him in a jail cell until he agreed to provide blood and saliva samples. He gave the samples. The samples cleared him. And then investigators moved on to other leads. But for Dana Henry, it was not over. The suspicion followed him like a shadow for 30 years. He spent approximately $50,000 on attorneys. He lost his house. He lost friendships. He lost family relationships. He moved away from the community he grew up in. He described his emotional state in 2 words: angry and depressed. Those 2 words. Nothing in between. Just 30 years of living under a cloud he did nothing to earn. "He's been through hell," said his former neighbor, Bridget Scully King. That was the cost of misdirected suspicion. And the real killer was still out there. The years passed. 1 year. 5. 10. Each anniversary of Kristy's death arrived and left without resolution. Sandy Wesselman gave interviews. She sat in front of cameras with her daughter's photograph beside her, and she talked about a girl the world deserved to know. She never stopped. She never accepted that the answer would not come. In 2011, on the 26th anniversary of the murder, police held a press conference and finally disclosed a detail they had kept secret for over 2 decades. Kristy's killer had taken her ring. The gold ring with the chipped pearl. The family heirloom she had been wearing that day. Police had kept that information locked away all those years as a filter against false confessions. Now they released it publicly, hoping someone, somewhere, had seen that ring. Hoping the killer had given it to someone who now had enough conscience to come forward. "There's a man out there who thinks he got away with murder," Sandy Wesselman said at that press conference, her voice carrying the weight of 26 years. "Please help us take away his dream. He stole all of Kristy's." That sentence. Read it again. He stole all of Kristy's. Not just her life. Her dreams. Her future. Her wedding she would never have. Her children she would never hold. Everything she had not yet become. Police tracked the fresh leads that came in. They canvassed 120 longtime residents of Kristy's subdivision. They chased every call. They ran down every tip. None of it broke the case open. The cold case unit had spent hundreds of leads and thousands of man-hours across 3 decades. Sergeant Robert Harris of the DuPage County Sheriff's Cold Case Squad said he believed the case would be solved. He was almost certain of it. But every door seemed to close just before it could open. Back in 2000, 15 years after the murder, investigators had taken the DNA profile from the sexual assault kit collected during Kristy's autopsy and submitted it to a national database. The technology had improved enough by then to make a submission worthwhile. And then they waited. A database match depends on one thing. The killer's DNA has to already be in the system. If he has never been arrested. If he has never been forced to provide a sample. He stays invisible. Michael Jones had spent years staying invisible. He lived approximately 150 miles from Glen Ellyn, in Champaign, Illinois. He was not someone who looked, on the surface, like a man carrying a 30-year-old secret. But the record behind him told a different story. In 1977, years before Kristy was killed, he had kidnapped an 18-year-old woman. He had served time. He was released. Then, between 1989 and 1990, just 4 years after Kristy's murder, he had repeatedly drugged and sexually assaulted a 7th-grade girl. A child. Again and again. He faced consequences that did not match the weight of what he had done. He was released back into the world. And the world kept spinning around him, unaware. Then in 2015, Michael Jones made what would become the most consequential mistake of his life. He was convicted of aggravated domestic battery in Champaign County. And under Illinois law, that conviction required him to submit a DNA sample to the national database. He had no choice. On September 10, 2015, investigators working Kristy's case received a notification. The DNA profile from the 1985 murder scene had matched a profile in the database. The profile belonged to Michael Jones. Detectives moved quickly. They obtained a search warrant for his home. On September 18th, they obtained a fresh DNA sample directly from Jones to confirm the match. On September 21st, 2015, exactly 30 years, 2 months, and 1 day after Kristy Wesselman walked out of her front door for the last time, Michael Jones was arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder and 1 count of aggravated sexual assault. He had thought he got away with it. For 30 years he had lived free while a mother buried her daughter's dreams alongside her daughter's body. For 30 years he had breathed easy while Sandy Wesselman never did. But science had finally caught up to him. The DNA that investigators preserved in 1985, long before anyone fully understood its power, had done what 1,000 leads and 100 investigators could not. It named him. There is something almost poetic about that. The technology that did not yet exist when Kristy died is what ultimately gave her justice. Jones maintained his innocence through the legal proceedings. His attorneys challenged the DNA handling. They requested that the lab technician who processed the evidence be questioned. The trial was set for January 23, 2018. But before the trial could begin, Jones did something unexpected. On January 18, 2018, Michael Jones, 64 years old, entered a guilty plea to 1 count of murder. 5 days later, he was sentenced to 80 years in prison. In the Wheaton courthouse that day, Kristy Wesselman stood before the man who had destroyed her family, and she delivered an 11-minute victim impact statement. 11 minutes. She looked at Jones only once during that entire statement. She had spent 33 years living inside the nightmare he created. She said everything she needed to say. Afterward, she stood before the cameras outside the courthouse, her daughter's photograph somewhere in her heart, and she said, "It's a joyful day and a very sad day. We will always miss Kristy." And then, in a statement that captured 33 years of grief wrapped inside one sentence, she said, "I can go home today and try to be a real person. Whatever that is. Whatever that is." A mother who lost her daughter at 15 never fully gets herself back. Justice does not undo loss. It honors it. And in honoring Kristy, something larger was set in motion. The law that required Michael Jones to submit his DNA in 2015 had been created specifically because of Kristy's case. Pushed forward by then DuPage County State's Attorney Joe Burkett in the years following her murder, the DNA database law turned Kristy's tragedy into a shield for future victims. Her death changed the law, and that law brought her killer to justice and has helped solve other cases across Illinois that may never have been cracked. Kristy Wesselman was 15 years old. She wanted to buy candy for her mom. She was somebody's daughter, somebody's friend. She was a girl with a future, and she deserved to come home. If you are a parent reading this, talk to your children tonight. Talk about awareness. Talk about trusting instincts on familiar paths as much as unfamiliar ones. Predators do not always live in the shadows. Sometimes they are on the paths you walk every day. Organizations like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children offer free safety resources for families. Seek them out. Share them. And if you made it to the end of this story, thank you for staying with Kristy. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share it. Every share keeps her memory alive. Every view says her name mattered. Because it did. She mattered. Drop a comment below and tell us what part of this story hit you hardest. We read every single one. Kristy Wesselman. Remembered. Always.